Today we're going to be making a box for these. I've made a box for a smaller size that came from Home Depot. This is a different brand from Uline. They're a little bit bigger, but I'll be making a box for these and videotaping the whole process. To the left here, we've done the math. The math has two sets of symbols here. The original symbols were for the first one, and then the second set of measurements and sizes are for the second one. So I'm going to be doing the second one. All of these pieces are my 10 pieces to cut, 2 ends, 2 sides, and a bottom piece. It's going to use the table saw. It's going to use a drill with a hole saw. It's going to use the jigsaw, and it's going to use the router, and it's going to use the pneumatic stapler. The first item on my list is to cut my pieces. I'm going to start with my 10 3/4 inch pieces. I'm going to cut enough material for that, and then I'm going to cut my 10 1/4 inch pieces, and then I'll cut them all down to smaller sizes. So I set the fence to 10 3/4 inch. Okay, there we go. I'm using an old piece of lumber, so I'm going to cut off the pieces that I don't want first. Cut out the screws so I get a nice clean finished product. Always wait for the saw to come to a complete stop. Now I'm going to set up my 10 3/4 inch, my first cut. I'm going to cut I cut my 10 3/4 and I cut my 10 1/4. I'm going to cut the 10 1/4 to 9 1/2, 9 1/4, 9 1/4, 2 pieces. Cuts are all the 6-inch cuts. So I'm going to make all the 6-inch cuts at the same time. pieces are cut. These are my 2 bottoms. These are my 4 side pieces. And these are my 4 end pieces. They look very similar. They are only a difference in height by that much. So my end pieces, what I need to do is I need to cut out a handle so I can grab it, and I need to drill that out with a hole saw, 2 hole saws, cut it with 2 jigsaw cuts, and then router it out to make a nice rounded edge on both the outside and the inside. And I need to do that before I assemble it. All right, I've marked my wood where I want my holes to be. I've actually marked the center of the drill right there and there. That's where I'm going to put my pilot bit on the hole saw. I'm going to actually put all 4 sheets together here so that when I'm drilling through the first sheet, the pilot hole is going to mark the second piece. And I've got a piece underneath here so I don't cut through the table. This is probably not the best way to do it if you're doing for fine woodworking, but for the sake of this project and the little crate I'm building, this will be perfect. Clamps to hold it in place. Put my bit in. I'm going to leave it extended out a little bit so that I can quickly change out the bit and clear it out. And here we go. There's the first piece. The bit is hot, be careful. There's the second piece. My first 2 holes. Reline up my pieces, make sure they are all together in a nice clean stack. Already marked, ready to go. And there's number 4. All 4 pieces ready to go. Real quick, real slick. I'm going to connect all my pieces so I have a line to follow. Don't know if you can see that. A little closer. Now with the jigsaw, I want to be able to cut my pieces. I want the clamps to not be in the way of my cut, and I want to not cut into the table. So I'm going to try this. One clamp here. One clamp over here. Probably do the same setup with the router when we get to that. This is not an easy cut to do. To make this nice and clean from this tangent where this line meets the curve to meet that other tangent, it's a difficult cut to make, and I'm never 100% perfect, but I'm going to do my best to make it nice and clean. My battery sounds like it's on the end of its life. This clamp is a little bit in my way. See if I can adjust it a little bit. Or I'm going to have to come in from the other side. I'll probably have to come in from the other side. Now I have to do it left-handed, and that's not very fun. I'm right-handed, so I'm not nearly as accurate with the left-handed cut. My blade looks like it's also dull because it's kind of going crooked, or the table shoe is crooked. I'm going to go with the blade is dull. Change out the blade. It's hot. That's right. See if I can correct the angle. My blade, my cut is at an angle. It's not 90 degrees straight. And that's because the blade was dull. It's really hard to correct. And I've actually just made it worse. But we'll do better on the next one. So that was my first one. Now, because the way the clamps were, I'm going to turn it 90 degrees with the next one so that I can do everything right-handed and not have to do a left-handed cut. It helps to have a sharp blade. and it helps be able to see what I'm doing. There's my 4 handles, rough cut. The router is still set up with the bit that I used the last time I did this a couple weeks ago, so I don't need to make any adjustments, but if I have to fine-tune the router, I may have to do several attempts to put the right bit in, get the depth right, make all those adjustments, but it should be ready to go. Okay, my clamp is in the way and is not allowing me to do that cut. I think I did this on the diagonal the last time. So I'm going to shift this over to here. Make sure that I'm missing the table. So I can do that full cut. Yeah, I should be able to get it now. I've rounded the edge so that now when my hands grip in there, I don't have a sharp edge of the wood cutting into my fingers. I'll just flip that over. Do the inside. Nice. And there we go. All 4 of my handles are finished. I have to go back to the table saw because on my sides I need to cut little grooves for those dividers. So we'll go back and we'll do that. I've roughly marked out my first piece where the notches should go. I've got to adjust my blade height to the halfway point now because I don't want to cut through the wood, I just want to cut a notch into it. So I'm going to go about halfway. I'm just going to eyeball it. I'm not going for perfection here, I just want to get partway through. Then, because I'm cutting partway through, I need to take my guard out. And there are cases where you have to cut without the guard. And when you're doing a partial cut, that's one of them. Now normally we would put the riving knife in because that keeps the 2 pieces of wood from binding on the other side when you can't use the regular guard. But there's an anomaly between this height of blade and the height of the riving knife, and the riving knife is slightly higher, so I'm having trouble with that, or I did the last time. So I'm going to leave the riving knife out. I'm not actually in danger of binding the wood because I'm not cutting all the way through. My measurement is 2 3/8 of an inch. So I'm going to measure 2 3/8 of an inch over. Too much, back a little. That's exactly 2 3/8. My pieces here are mirror imaged on both sides, so I'm measuring in from 2 3/8 on this side and 2 3/8 on this side. So that means for every cut I do this side, I can flip it over and do the same cut on this side. Now I need to make that notch a full 1/4 of an inch thick, so I'm just going to shift the fence over a little bit and make a second cut. I want a 1/4 inch piece of Masonite to fit in there nice and smoothly, and it looks like I've cut it big enough now. That's good. Now for the center cut. If I do this right, I should be able to cut both sides of center and get it in one pass. Going in there, so I'm going to cut it a little bit more. done this special cut here, I need to restore the table saw so the next person that uses it can have it all ready to go. So I'm going to raise that blade up a little bit so it's actually making a formal, proper cut. Going to put the guard back in. Close the dust shroud inside. Put the table saw insert back in. Put the dust collector back on, and it's ready to go for the next person. Got my two side pieces. Got my two end pieces with the handles. Put the black side outside so it looks nice. Don't have to paint it later, although if I did want to paint it, I could, because there's still going to be unpainted edges, but this is a utilitarian thing, and it will be fine the way it is. I'm going to put some glue on the edge here. Stand these pieces up, line them up. Just that one. All the way down to maximum depth. These pieces should be the same this way or this way because we cut them. And I cut both sides at the same time, so they should be identical either way. Turn it around, put glue on both sides. Take a wet rag and clean up any of the glue. If I use a cloth rag, I want to rinse it out before the glue dries and wash it out. If I use paper towels, I can just throw them in the trash. So some glue on the inside. I'm going to clean out the glue on the inside here. There's my box, just needs a bottom. Bottom fits, dry fit it. A little bit of glue. I'm not going to use as much on this because I don't want it to seep out so much. It's a little tight. A little tight, but it is the right size. Here's my box. Clean out the inside. Oh, got a few pieces going in weird ways on the inside. Did I do that on the other one? Gonna have to get the grinder out and fix that. All right. I've got some pieces sticking out, so I'm gonna have to fix that. Hopefully we can get the body grinder in there and trim all these off. Looks like we did the same thing on the other piece. All right, those are happier now. They're not going to poke up and poke into fingers, but fingers aren't going to reach in there because they're going to have these dividers. But one of the things about the narrow crown stapler is that you've got to make sure your angle is right. You've got to make sure you're not too far up, and if you've got a weird angle, you're going to shoot into the inside or out the outside. So it does take a little bit of a precision and learning curve. I did not pre-cut the Masonite for these. I know the height is a little less than 6 inches because we have to take into account the, so we're 5.25 inches. That's what it should be. But if I pre-cut them, they would have been wrong. So it's best if I just wait until I'm finished. And it says 10 inches, so I'm going to do just slightly less than 10 inches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces, 5.25 by 10 inches. I'm going to do slightly less than 10 inches because 10 inches would be a tight fit. So we're just going to do like a fraction of an inch shorter than that. I said 5.25, right? I cut 7 pieces because the end piece of this is slightly expanded and I didn't want to use that piece. So the first piece I cut off I'm not going to use. I'm going to use the 6 pieces in the middle. This is that piece that's a little bit expanded here on the edge. And I think that will have a tough time going into my slots. Ideally, they should just slide in. A little bit snug. I should have gone a little bit shorter, but that's okay. They're going to fit. Said slightly less than 10 inches. I should have gone slightly more. Slightly a little less. Should have been a little bit more. Everything's going to be snug in. Now, if I don't want to smash up my wood, which I'm doing here, I should be using a block or something. It's not going to fit there. Oh, yes it is. Tight fit. I should have trimmed that up, but once I got it part way in there, it wasn't going to come out. All right, there we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't know how to get them out. Yeah, there's plenty of room for fingers to get them out. There's our crate, all done.